Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Prashant Kumar Sinha, and with me is Renuka, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. Government of India intensifies efforts to meet oxygen supply throughout the country. Nations around the world offer assistance to help India fight surge in coronavirus cases. More than 14 crore 52 lakh people administered COVID-19 vaccines in India so far. Over 250,000 people recover from COVID-19. China announced a new anti-espionage regulation amid worsening ties with the world's major powers. Country's organic food products export rise by more than 50% despite COVID-19 challenges. Turkey announces lockdown from 29th of April to curb coronavirus infections, and in Ipl Cricket, Delhi Capitals take on Royal Challengers Bangalore in Ahmedabad. As the number of COVID cases are on the rise again, we appeal to our listeners not to lower the guard. Follow all the precautions, and all those above 45 years to get vaccinated without any hesitation. Stay safe and protected by following these three simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki doori for social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. And now the news in detail. The Indian government has imported 20 cryogenic tankers of 10 metric tons and 20 metric tons capacity, allocated them to states to address shortage of oxygen tankers in the country. These cryogenic ISO tankers have been imported to augment the transportation of oxygen. Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, in consultation with Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, have mapped the allocation to suppliers of Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Delhi and Gujarat. India received the first shipment of medical aid from Britain on Tuesday. External Affairs Ministry said the shipment includes 100 ventilators and 95 oxygen concentrators. Foreign nations, including US, France, Germany, Israel and the EU, have promised aid to India in light of massive surge in COVID cases throughout the country. The countries have said they will provide oxygen, diagnostic tests, ventilators and protective gear. A report.
France will send 8 high-capacity oxygen generators, liquid oxygen and ventilators. White House said the U.S. will provide a range of emergency assistance, including oxygen-related supplies, vaccine materials and therapeutics. Yesterday, IAF C-17 airlifted 6 cryogenic oxygen containers from Dubai Airport and landed at the Panagarh Air Base. Airlift for another 6 containers from Dubai is planned for today. Oxygen containers from Bangkok were airlifted by the Air Force. Containers were also airlifted from Chandigarh Airport in Singapore last Saturday. Suparna Saikia, IIR News, Delhi.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has directed officials to ensure rapid upgradation of health infrastructure in the country. Mr. Modi today chaired a meeting with top officials to review the COVID-19 related situation in the country. The Prime Minister got an overview of the situation in the country relating to oxygen availability, medicines and health infrastructure. The Empowered Group, working on boosting oxygen supply, briefed the Prime Minister on the efforts being made to ramp up availability and supply of oxygen in the country. They informed the Prime Minister about increasing allocation of oxygen to states. It was discussed that the production of liquid medical oxygen in the country has increased from 5,700 tons per day in August of last year to the present 8,922 tons as on the 25th of this month. The domestic production of liquid medical oxygen is expected to cross 9,250 tons per day by the end of this month. The Prime Minister instructed the officials to work closely with state governments to start the PSA oxygen plants at the earliest. Officers also apprised Mr. Modi that they are encouraging states to also set up PSA oxygen plants. He was also briefed about the functioning of the Oxygen Express railway service, as well as the domestic sorties and international sorties undertaken by the Indian Air Force to transport oxygen tankers. The Empowered Group, working on medical infrastructure and COVID management, briefed the Prime Minister on efforts being undertaken to ramp up availability of beds and ICUs. They informed the efforts being to break the chain of transmission. The Prime Minister stressed on the need to ensure that specific guidelines and strategies evolved regarding COVID management needs to be properly implemented by the relevant agencies in the states. The Empowered Group, working on communication, informed on the efforts being undertaken to improve awareness among people on COVID-related behavior. Cabinet Secretary, Home Secretary, Secretary Information and Broadcasting, Secretary Pharmaceuticals, Member Niti Aayog, DG ICMR, Secretary Biotechnology and other senior officers were present in the meeting.
The world's largest COVID-19 vaccination drive is smoothly progressing in India. The Health and Family Welfare Ministry of India has informed that over 33,59,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines were administered to the beneficiaries in the last 24 hours. The ministry said over 14 crore 52 lakh people have already been inoculated with COVID-19 vaccine jabs in the country so far. From the 1st of next month, which is also the third phase of the largest vaccination drive, everyone above the age of 18 years will be eligible to take COVID vaccines. The registration for the third phase will begin from tomorrow on the CoWIN platform and the Arogya Setu app. Amid the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic, India on Tuesday witnessed some respite from a record number of coronavirus cases. The Indian Health Ministry said over 3,23,000 fresh cases have been reported in the country within 24 hours, which is around 30,000 less than the cases reported on Monday. However, the active caseloads in the several states and union territories are still rising. As a result, the recovery rate is continuously declining in the country. The ministry has informed at present there are over 28,82,000 active cases in the country, which comprises 16.34% of the total positive cases. The recovery rate has further declined to 82.53%. The ministry informed that more than 2,51,000 people have recovered from the coronavirus infection in the last 24 hours. So far, more than 1 crore 45 lakh patients have been recovered from this infectious disease in the country. The Health Ministry has said over 2,700 deaths have been reported in India within 24 hours, taking the toll to over 1,97,000 across the country. Meanwhile, the Indian Council of Medical Research has informed that over 16,58,000 tests of coronavirus samples were conducted within 24 hours. With this, the total number of tests reached 28 crore in the country.
The White House said on Monday that the U.S. will share up to 60 million doses of its AstraZeneca vaccine with other countries. The move comes amid rising pressure on President Joe Biden's administration to support global vaccine equity. The United States has announced plans to share the stock of the vaccine as they become available. The White House said it expected that about 10 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine could be released when the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, finishes its review in the coming weeks. It said that another 50 million doses were in various stages of production. At a news briefing, White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki said FDA officials would carry out quality checks on doses before they were exported. The U.S. has already announced that it will provide raw materials for Indian vaccine manufacturers as the country battles a devastating surge in cases. The FDA has so far authorized 3 vaccines against COVID-19, Pfizer-BioNTech, Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. Meanwhile, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, lifted the pause on the use of Johnson & Johnson's single-dose vaccine, the only single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. The pause came into effect after over 6 cases of a rare and severe type of blood clot were reported in people who were administered the vaccine. Most of these cases were noted in women between the ages of 18 to 49 years. After their assessment, however, the FDA and the CDC concluded that the vaccine is safe and effective in preventing COVID-19. Further, the FDA has said that the vaccine's known and potential benefits outweigh any risks in individuals 18 years or older.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met virtually with leaders of American business, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the U.S.-India Business Council on Monday to discuss how the United States and India can leverage the expertise and capabilities of the U.S. private sector to support urgent COVID-19 relief efforts in India. In a statement, Mr. Blinken, Coordinator for Global COVID Response and Health Security, Gail Smith, and National Security Council Coordinator for Indo-Pacific Affairs, Kurt Campbell, provided an update on U.S. assistance and welcomed coordination with U.S. industry. Secretary Blinken expressed appreciation to U.S. industry partners and reaffirmed that the United States stands shoulder to shoulder with the people of India as we continue to work towards solution for the COVID-19 crisis. Now let's take a look at the coronavirus update from around the world.
Japan is planning to open a new mass vaccination center in Tokyo next month in the run-up to the Olympic Games this summer. The country is battling a fourth wave of infections while vaccinations are still low in comparison to other rich countries. According to reports, around 1.5% of the 126 million population has been vaccinated. Turkey has announced a nationwide full lockdown starting on Thursday to curb a recent surge in coronavirus infections. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, after a cabinet meeting, said that Turkey's schools will close, intercity travel will be restricted and public transport capacity limited. Australia has announced a ban on direct passenger flights from India until at least mid-May. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said travel to India posed a clearly present risk. Nursery and primary schools reopened on Monday across France after a 3-week closure in the first step out of the country's partial lockdown. Schools have been closed since April 5th as the government decided to bring forward the date of Easter holidays in an effort to slow down the spreading of the virus. The Amnesty International called on the EU to back a proposal to temporarily lift patent protections for COVID-19 vaccines on Tuesday. The human rights organization criticized the European Commission and EU member states for ignoring the increasing calls to enable a global increase in production of vaccines. World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has assured that the WHO is doing everything it can to help India. Describing the situation in India as beyond heartbreaking, Dr. Tedros on Monday said that the WHO is providing critical equipment and supplies to India to help fight the surge in COVID cases and deaths. Meanwhile, a UN-led global immunization strategy was unveiled on Monday to reach more than 50 million children who have missed life-saving jabs against measles and other diseases because of COVID-19 disruption. The WHO, along with the UNICEF and Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, said the new global strategy has the potential to save 50 million lives within less than a decade. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said to avoid multiple outbreaks of life-threatening diseases like measles, yellow fever and diphtheria, it must be ensured that routine vaccination services are protected in every country of the world. A WHO survey showed more than one-third of countries were still seeing disruptions to their routine immunization services. The joint statement said around 60 mass vaccination campaigns were currently postponed in 50 countries, putting 228 million people, mostly children, at risk of diseases such as measles and polio. Manoj Singh Rana for World News, All India Radio.
As more and more people across the world get vaccinated against the coronavirus, the WHO has released an explainer to answer some of the common questions asked by people with respect to the vaccination process. Answering a question on the efficacy of COVID vaccines, WHO's Dr. Swaminathan said that almost all the vaccines widely being used for inoculations have proven efficacy.
Almost all of these vaccines are highly protective against severe disease, which leads very often to hospitalization and then, unfortunately, to death. So, while they may not completely prevent infection, the immunity that the body develops in response to vaccination is good enough to protect people from getting sick, even if they get the infection. We're also learning about protection against infection, because this is something that wasn't clear from the trials, but in countries like Israel and the UK, which have been studying it very systematically, it appears that people who have received the first dose have about 70 to 80% protection against infection, and after the second dose this could be even higher. Now this may vary from vaccine to vaccine, so we cannot generalize. We need to collect more data. I think what's important to remember is that even as one gets vaccinated, we have to maintain all the other precautions and take all the other public health measures that WHO has been advocating, because each of these tools actually adds a layer of protection.
On the growing concerns of new variants emerging around the world, Dr. Swaminathan said that the vaccine manufacturers are working towards updating their vaccines to continue being effective against them.
If a person receives a full course of vaccination, then there's enough protective immunity in the body to protect against severe disease even from these variants. So even in the countries where there are a lot of variants circulating, people who have been vaccinated are not ending up in hospital or dying even if they do get the infection. So I think overall the news is positive. Companies and labs around the world are working on newer versions of the vaccine which accommodate the proteins of the variant virus. So I think in the next few months we will begin to see results from clinical trials which are looking at these new modified vaccines, and then we will be able to take a decision on whether people are going to need boosters or not.
Cautioning against mass gatherings, Dr. Swaminathan urged people against becoming complacent and to continue to persist with COVID-appropriate behavior.
We understand that people are tired and they want to get back to normal life, but this is not the time to relax at all, because the vaccination programs in most countries have not even begun to approach the levels of herd immunity that we need. And so we need to recognize, people need to recognize that engaging in these kind of activities where we are gathering without any precautions is endangering not only themselves but the lives of their loved ones and friends, and particularly the older people and the vulnerable people in the community.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
Welcome back to the world news. The Bangladesh government approved the emergency use of the Russian COVID-19 vaccine Sputnik V on Tuesday. According to reports, Directorate General of Drug Administration Major General Mahbubur Rahman said that the vaccine is expected to arrive in Bangladesh in May this year. Sputnik V is the second vaccine to receive approval for use in Bangladesh. Earlier, the Serum Institute of India, SII, produced the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine was improved for use in Bangladesh, which has received 7 million doses of the contracted 30 million doses from the SII till now. Additionally, it has also received over 3.2 million doses from India as a gift. However, in recent few weeks, the supply of the AstraZeneca vaccine has stopped due to a surge of domestic cases in India and increased domestic demand for the vaccine. China announced a new anti-espionage regulation amid worsening ties with the world's major powers and a renewed focus on national security ahead of a key Communist Party anniversary later this year. Chinese state news agency quoted a senior official at the Ministry of State Security as saying, overseas espionage and intelligence agencies and hostile forces have intensified infiltration into China and broadened their tactics of stealing secrets in various ways and in more fields, which poses a serious threat to China's national security and interests. The new regulation allows the National Security Authority to draw up a list of companies and organizations that are susceptible to foreign infiltration and require listed institutes to adopt security measures to prevent foreign infiltration. According to the regulation, companies, organizations or social groups on the list should shoulder the responsibility to roll out detailed measures against foreign espionage, including arranging their work staff to sign letters of commitment before taking up posts reporting their activities related to national security, giving education to personnel ahead of their departure abroad, and interviewing personnel after their return to China. Experts opine that new rules may also be used to bring commercial companies, universities, media and think tanks even more under government control to monitor and report the activities of Western entities operating in China, so this makes it more challenging for Western companies to do business than it already is. The new regulations come as the Communist Party prepares to commemorate its 100th anniversary on July 1st and after China marked the 6th National Security Education Day earlier this month, during which party and the government bodies held workshops on how to guard against foreign spying.
India's organic food products exports rose by more than 50% in terms of value in 2020-21 despite COVID-19 challenges. Commerce and Industry Minister said in terms of quantity, the exports of organic food products grew by 39% to 8,88,000 metric tons during the last financial year compared to 2019-20. The growth in organic products has been achieved despite logistical and operational challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. The ministry said oil cake meal has been a major commodity of the organic product exports for the country, followed by oil seeds, cereals and millets, tea, medicinal plant products and dry fruits. India's organic products have been exported to 58 countries including the USA, European Union, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, Switzerland, Israel and South Korea. Indian Health Minister Dr. Varthan on Tuesday inaugurated blood donation camps at 13 different locations in Chandigarh, Punjab, Haryana and Himachal Pradesh. The blood donation camps are being organized by the competent foundation with the help of various associations, NGOs and blood banks to fulfill the blood demand during the COVID pandemic. Speaking on the occasion, he appreciated the efforts of the foundation to organize blood donation camps with more strength and expansion for fulfilling the blood requirement due to COVID pandemic. Dr. Varthan exhorted masses to at least donate blood once in a year.
The Reserve Bank of India has asked private banks that the chair of the board should be an independent director. The RBI has published the notification, Corporate Governance in Banks, Appointment of Directors and Constitution of Committees of the Board on Monday. It will be applicable to all the private sector banks, including small finance banks, SFBs and wholly owned subsidiaries of foreign banks. The RBI has asked that the Audit Committee, Nomination and Remuneration Committee of the Board shall be constituted with only non-executive directors. Non-executive directors should be in majority in the Risk Management Committee of the Board. The RBI has also fixed a maximum age of 70 for MD and CEO and 75 for non-executive directors. Banks are permitted to comply with these instructions latest by 1st of October 2021. At present, Chair of Board who is not an independent director as on date can complete the current term as Chair as already approved by the Reserve Bank. Banks with MD and CEOs or whole-time directors who have already completed 12 to 15 years as MD and CEO or whole-time directors shall be allowed to complete their current term as already approved by the Reserve Bank. The UK has sanctioned 22 individuals involved in serious international corruption on Monday. In a statement, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has announced the UK's first sanctions under the new global anti-corruption regime. The statement added that the 22 individuals were involved in notorious corruption cases in Russia, South Africa, South Sudan and throughout Latin America. Mr. Raab said that corruption has a corrosive effect as it slows development, drains the wealth of poorer nations and keeps their people trapped in poverty. The statement added that the global anti-corruption sanctions regime builds on the success of the global human rights sanction regime established in July 2020. The regime has resulted in the UK imposing sanctions on 78 individuals and entities involved in serious human rights violations, including from Myanmar, Belarus, China and Russia. The United States, in a statement, commended the United Kingdom on the establishment of a global anti-corruption sanctions regime. It said that the move reinforces the US-UK partnership in the fight against corruption and illicit finance.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed on Monday to reiterate the United States' grave concern about the deteriorating humanitarian and human rights crisis in the country, including the growing risk of famine in Ethiopia's Tigray region, as well as ongoing insecurity in other parts of the country. The Secretary pressed for Ethiopia's and Eritrea's commitments to withdraw Eritrean troops from Tigray to be implemented immediately in full and in a verifiable manner. In addition, the Secretary noted that Eritrean forces and Amhara regional forces in Tigray are contributing to the growing humanitarian disaster and committing human rights abuses. He also stressed the need for all parties to the conflict to end hostilities immediately. Secretary Blinken welcomed the joint Ethiopian Human Rights Commission and the UN's Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights Investigation in Tigray to document human rights abuses and stressed the need for justice and accountability measures to hold those responsible to account. At the domestic stock markets, key indices posted over 1% gains each, while the rupee gained 7 paise against the US dollar. In the international markets, Brent crude futures rose towards $66 per barrel. A report from the Business World.
Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange surged 558 points, 1.2% to end at 48,944 today. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange jumped 168 points, 1.2% to 14,653. In the global equity markets, Asia Pacific ended mixed. Japan's Nikkei 225 index fell 0.5%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng index ended marginally lower, and South Korea's Kospi index shed 0.1%. The China Shanghai Composite Index ended marginally higher, and Singapore Straits Times Index gained 0.3%. In Europe, stocks were subdued with the key indices, London's FTSE 100 and France's CAC 40 had shed 0.2% each, while Germany's DAX had dropped 0.4% in intraday trade. Global crude oil futures rose ahead of a meeting of the producer group OPEC Plus to discuss oil output policy amid concern India's coronavirus crisis could dent a recovery in fuel demand. So Brent crude gained 30 cents to trade at $65.95 a barrel. US crude futures also gained 30 cents to $62.21 a barrel. Back home, gold gained 69 rupees to 46,906 rupees per 10 grams at the Delhi's bullion market. Silver rose 255 rupees to 67,890 rupees per kilogram. And in the foreign exchange market, rupee gained 7 paise to 74 rupees and 65 paise against the US dollar. Arjun Chaudhary for World News, All India Radio.
A community service center has been set up to bring all data on board India's first dedicated solar space mission to a single web-based interface. The service center is called Aditya L1 Support Cell. It is a joint effort of the Indian Space Research Organization and the Aryabhatta Research Institute of Observational Sciences. It will allow every interested individual to perform scientific analysis of the data. It is slated to develop specific tools to assist guest observers and researchers to prepare observing proposals for Aditya L1 observations. It will also assist the ISRO with the design and development of analysis software for handling scientific data. The center will also provide co-aligned data from other observatories around the world that can complement the data obtained from Aditya L1. The center will expand the reach of Aditya L1 not only within India but also increase the visibility of the mission at the international level. And now moving on to sports. In IPL Cricket, Royal Challengers Bangalore has set a target of 172 runs for Delhi Capitals in Ahmedabad. In reply, Delhi Capitals were 115 for 5 in 16 overs when reports last came in. Earlier, Delhi Capitals captain Rishabh Pant won the toss and chose to field.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Washington Post writes that Brazil rejects Russia's Sputnik V coronavirus vaccine, citing safety concerns. The Guardian says that Ursula von der Leyen says EU could punish UK over Brexit breaches. The Guardian writes that ethnic armed group in Myanmar seizes military base near the Thai border. And the Gulf Times says that oil tanker a Symphony crashes outside China's Qingdao port, spilling oil. A quick look at the headlines once again. Government of India intensifies efforts to meet oxygen supply throughout the country. Nations around the world offer assistance to help India fight surge in coronavirus cases. More than 14 crore 52 lakh people administered COVID-19 vaccines in India so far. Over 250,000 people recover from COVID-19. China announced a new anti-espionage regulation amid worsening ties with world's major powers. Country's organic food product exports rise by more than 50% despite COVID-19 challenges. Turkey announces lockdown from 29th of April to curb coronavirus infections. And in IPL Cricket, Delhi Capitals take on Royal Challengers Bangalore in Ahmedabad. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let's listen to his favorite bhajan Vaishnav Jan by artists from South Africa.
Vaishnav Jan do tene kahiye je peed parai jane re par dukhe उपकार करे तो ये पर दुखे उपकार करे तो ये मन अभिमान नाने ने सकल लोक मान सहुने बंधे निंदा न करते के नीरे बाच काच मन निश्चल राखे बछ काच मन निश्चल राखे धन धन जननी तेरी प्रेम.
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.